Welcome everyone to this month's Intentional Success webinar. I'm your host, Tom Stimson. Today is Viewer's Choice. I'm going to answer your questions about anything. I'll speak to any topic you would like to throw at me. Some of you have sent me a few in advance, so we'll have something to go to. But if you're here, drop something into the Q&A preferably. I'll have trouble keeping up with the chat, but Q&A is great. And we'll move on with that. So there's always a few new folks here, so let me introduce myself. I am Tom Stimson. I work with the owners and management teams of companies that want to grow, make money, have fun. And however, whatever balance of formula that you want, anything I can do to help you move forward, let's certainly have that conversation. So this is being recorded, as you just heard, and that recording will be up later today. For those of you that already have the link, you will get an email sometime in the next 4 or 5 hours to remind you where that link is so that you can go back and look at this recording or share it with anybody else that you want to share it with. Questions in the Q&A box, drop something in the chat, let people know where you're from, ask questions in the chat of each other if you'd like. Crowdsourcing is great and welcome. My quote of the week, Thoreau, right? Success usually comes to those who are too busy looking for it. And I bring that up because I know right now a lot of you are too busy to even think about what the questions you should be asking are. And I get that. And I'm excited that we're finally kind of swamped again. I realize it's not ideal in terms of your capacity and your resources. And probably those are things that you're going to ask me about today. But we'll get through this busy period and we'll get ready for the next one. And I'm hoping you'll find that the available work will keep you busier more often instead of the feast and famine that is typical for our industry. I'll get all my plugs out of the way because then I'm going to kill the slides and we'll just do some whiteboard conversation here. Hey, Anthony, always good to see you. So I'm going to talk about scalability. It'll come up many times. Certainly know that next month's webinar will be all about this. Scalability is extremely important in that you need to be able to make money at any revenue level. You shouldn't be completely dependent on a super high threshold to make money and have to give money away on other months. You should be profitable every single month, and that's what scalable means. So as business increases, your profit should increase and keep going up. So we now have an opportunity in our industry to rebuild our businesses in a more scalable model instead of trying to force our old model to become more scalable, which was really pushing sand up a hill. It's a big challenge. So the pandemic has kind of helped us make that shift. So if you are ready to realize all this, if you're ready to experience this the way that my clients have experienced it, then let's have a conversation. Reach out, let's do an introduction call, learn a little bit about each other, see if we're a good fit. If you have some idea of where you want to go, I probably know a way to get you there. And that's something that we should be talking about. So let's figure out what's keeping you from getting started on that journey. Next month's webinar, okay, will be Intentional Success as a Strategy. Yes, Intentional Success. That's the name of this webinar series. It's the name of my newsletter. But the fact of the matter is, it has been my strategy all along. You're only as good as what you get done. So we have to do the things that will intentionally lead to the outcomes that we want. There is no waiting for the things to happen in intentional success. Everything happens because you did something to make it happen. And the more things that you do to make things happen, the closer you get to your goals. So we can get the results that you want. We have to do the things that will help it happen sooner and better. And part of that is being able to pull back and look at the big picture. So I'll share you how I do that with my clients, what that looks like, and what are some of the philosophies that we apply to help people turn that corner. Everybody wants to get to the next level. How do we get there? What are the things that you're going to do differently in an intentional success company? So join me next month for that. I bet we'll have a big turnout because we'll have a lot more folks available. So I've got some stuff coming in on the Q&A. I'm going to start looking at that right now. Please feel free to post anything, any topic you would like me to speak to, any specific question that you have. Keep it tight so that I don't have to read too terribly much, and we'll get right to it. There you are. All right. Q&A. Let me go the right thing here. All right, I'm not going to see it there. All right. First topic here is thoughts on labor and hiring in a new normal. Good, because that's one of the things that was on my go-to list here that many people have sent in. So for whoever asked the question, one, props to you for not saying labor shortage, because the fact is we don't have a labor shortage, just like we don't have a logistics shortage. What we have is a supply and demand problem. So because of our demand and our supply situation, it feels like we don't have enough labor. But we can always fix supply and demand because it's simply a matter of price point. Now, and this is not an oversimplification. There's a lot of people who work in this industry who are on the sidelines or doing something else because they aren't making the money to make it worth their while to come back here. So if you're still offering the same rates or expecting the same rates for your freelance technical crew or even your staff that you were getting 2 years ago, you're part of the problem, right? Rates are going to go up. So when there is a labor shortage or demand exceeds supply, labor rates are going to go up. You're going to have to pay more, or you're going to have to turn away business. It's really up to you. The opportunities are out there. We can still make money. We can pay a higher rate. And after 18 months of reduced pay, your staff also would like a raise. And I know what you're dealing with. You're seeing, oh, all of a sudden we're paying freelancers that we were paying $25 an hour. Now we're paying them $35 or $40 an hour. And we're still paying our staff the same thing we were paying them 2 years ago. You know what? People are going to resent that. Right? I take all of this into account when I'm coaching my clients to build a sustainable, scalable model for your business. We take into account what the supply chain can do for us. And we only make money when we can make a margin on our supply chain. So if you can't take your supply chain and charge more for it than you're paying, you're not going to make any money. You don't have a business. It also means that you're going to have to pay your team to keep them as well, because we have a supply and demand problem with permanent staff as well. So what you expect to pay is going to change. Your numbers are all changing. So you have to rejigger your formulas, right? It's pretty simple. Now, fortunately in sales, when we're selling, the formula is pretty simple. I take my cost and I add margin to it. And that margin is based on how much risk I have in promising something I don't have in my hands, right? So if you have something sitting on the shelf and you want to sell it, you will sell it at a lower margin than something that you're going to have to go get and you're not sure that you can get it. So the margins you should be charging today have to be higher because your supply chain is shorter. It's less available. Therefore, you're at a higher risk. So you have to charge more money. You can, on any given day, right now, if you need somebody tomorrow, I guarantee you could find somebody. You just haven't put the right number out there. Because when the number changes, so does the availability of people. We get this, right? Somebody who took a full-time job somewhere else will call in sick tomorrow if you pay them twice what they used to make, right? It's supply and demand. So how long will this go on? That's a great question. I think once the pay normalizes and we get our margins back in line with the risk that we are dealing with, in other words, if we undo all the commoditization that we inflicted upon ourselves prior to the pandemic, then I think the rates are not going to go back down, but the supply chain is going to be more available and it's going to be easier to do more business. Now, having said that, good talent is always going to cost more than average talent. And I will say this as kindly as I can. You as employers or producers need the labor pool more than they need you. And the supply shortage that we're seeing is a direct reflection of the fact that we have lost sight of how much we need these people. And we've got to change who we are and how we deal with them and how we buy and what we buy at. Because we can bring them back into the marketplace, but we have to be a credible place for them to go to. So right now we need the labor pool more than they need us because they've made their choices. You know, they will sit home, take care of the kids and, you know, work a 10-hour week for less money to not have to take the low pay from you. So think about all of that. Let's see, what else can I say about labor? I talk a lot about overhead and keeping your overhead low and keeping the number of people you have on staff low. And when we're talking about this labor pool and the shortage in the labor pool, also keep in mind that the solution isn't hiring people full-time. If you hire people full-time at a higher rate than it used to be, you have a full-time expense, you have full-time overhead, even in months when you're not busy or where, you know, the jobs, you know, you have weeks where you have no work. So the business models that my clients are running almost exclusively are low overhead, minimal staff, and they're outsourcing most direct labor. Before the pandemic, everybody had as much direct labor on staff as they could possibly have. So they had complete control over scheduling, so they could sell one more show, they could juggle people around one more time, and keep this, you know, keep the pipeline full is what they kept telling me. But the net result of that was the 4 or 5 slow months of the year wiped out all the profits they made by having people on staff the 6 or 7 months that were busy. I'm not letting my clients, I don't want you to go back to that. I want you to understand where the value is. Your value is not in having people on staff. Your value is the ability to procure people. So build a bigger bench, pay what it takes to get the good people, and keep your main staff, your overhead staff, focused on acquiring business and planning the execution of the products and services that those clients are asking for. Anybody that's involved in the direct delivery is somebody that you can outsource or have as an on-demand staff person, as needed staff person. All right, that's enough of that for the moment. Next comment question: during COVID, our systems broke down and I realized that they weren't sustainable anyway. Yes, welcome to the club. What can I do to create the systems that we need and make them easier to repeat no matter who is doing them? All right, this is a common theme, and basically it goes like this, to paraphrase, is things would break before the pandemic. We had too many moving parts. Not everybody understood the systems. Now we're in a different situation and we have different moving parts and we need different systems. Okay, how do I get back to the point where I can one day say I have a working system? How do I get started on this? Here's the process in a nutshell that I go through with my clients once I'm engaged. Is I simply with them follow an order through the system. What is the customer experience? How is the job going to be handled from inception to final billing? And if you follow an order through the system, you will touch every single process that needs to be there. Now, what we will find as we look at all those processes is where all the constraints are. And so when we're retooling processes, we're also retooling who handles the process, because the process isn't the constraint, it's the person executing the process. So you may have a perfectly good process with one person doing too many parts of it, but you could take another person who's also doing too many parts of another process, move a few steps around, and all of a sudden you've got equilibrium and you can keep going. So what we have to do is follow that order through the system and optimize for it. And the thing that the belief that you're going to have to let go of is the belief that the best person at any task should be the one doing it. And that's not how it works. Okay. we very often have people who are best at something doing jobs that anybody could do, but they happen to be best at it, but it's not the highest and best use of their time. Right. So if somebody's a great broadcast engineer and they happen to be really good at fixing the barcode reader, you can pay somebody else to fix the barcode reader. So pay attention to what it is that you're trying to get done and get the right people working on it. The other thing is that our legacy of doing work holds us back, right? We're stuck there thinking, well, we've always done it this way. How do you not do that? Don't project managers always do this? Well, who wrote that rule? So when you follow an order through the system, you also find that what you call a job or call a position in your company and what you call a process are getting in each other's way. So project management is a process. A project manager is someone who manages part of that process, but maybe not the entire process. So you have to think a little bit differently about that. So I hope that will get you going a little bit. Sit down, pen and paper, whiteboard, walk through how you get jobs done. How do you get an order through the system? Who touches it? What should happen for it? And then you'll start to have an understanding of how you can do to make it more flawless, less likely to fail. And one more thing I want you to think about when you're doing that, every step in your process should have a fail safe. If a process fails, it's always going to be human error. Make sure 2 humans have to make an error in order for your process to fail. Checks and balances, right? So make sure that somebody is always checking somebody else so that we never miss anything. There's always a chance. And if you get really well-designed processes, there's a 3rd check on there so that 3 people have to fail in order for a failure to manifest in your delivery. All right. Here's a good general question. I need both operations and sales help. What should I hire first? If you need operations help, you have process issues, you need to fix your process and you need a bigger bench for outsourcing because most of operations is outsourced, right? So you need the operations crews that we're running now are very small. An operations manager, logistics, maybe labor procurement, warehouse manager, and everybody else is on demand work, okay? If you need sales help, you should be hiring sales. And most of my clients right now, we are hiring sales in all sorts of sales roles, right? So you have different types of sales in your business. Somebody doesn't have to know your business inside and out or be able to write a quote from scratch for the most complex job. Sometimes they just need to be able to process a simple order. So if a good person walks through the door, hire them and put them in front of a terminal and teach them how to write a transaction and give them all the transactions. So a lot of room right now for sales. Again, we have a lot of demand for our services. It's our supply chain that's constrained. So if you can increase your throughput on sales and force delivery to keep up and force delivery to be focused on building the supply chain, you'll end up with a better supply chain, you'll meet more service, and you will grow. Okay. Next topic. How do I, all right, I'm going to you guys can't see what I'm reading, so I'm going to combine these things. How do I figure out pricing? And I've mentioned pricing a couple of times already, and people do ask me about that. My clients ask me all the time, how should we price this? And so that's the wrong question. Tell me what the cost is, right? It's like, how can I find new customers? That's the wrong question. Tell me who your ideal customer is. So what's the cost of the thing that you're trying to price? It all starts from there. And if we can clear up the misperceptions about what things cost, because it's not what it could cost, it's not what I think it costs. What it costs is a real finite number. If you pick up the phone right now and you need this today, okay, what's the reasonable amount that you're going to have to pay to get a yes? All right, which means it's in flux. There's a lot of change going on. And over the course of several weeks, you can ask for the same price and get varying answers because The supply chain is somewhat disrupted. Therefore, their answers are going to change because they're having trouble with their costs. So keeping our finger on the pulse of pricing in times like this is very, very important. Being able to know what you can reasonably expect to pay, which means that you need more than one answer when you ask for pricing. So what's it cost to get this LED wall for this time period? Well, I know a guy who'll do it for $3,500, except he's busy that week. Well, okay, so now that's a useless piece of information, right? What is it going to cost to get that in the time period you need? Because that is the actual cost, not the would-be cost in the right circumstances that you can't price. And so a lot of this is speculative, so you're going to have to make some best guesses. And we all know, us old cross rental guys know, the less specific you sell, the easier it is for me to fulfill in the sub-rental market. So if you need a very specific brand and make of product, if you're doing trade show booth and you need this exact model number to make it work, that price is much higher than if anything that fits that spec will work, right? So the amount of margin you add to the price will change. So if it's something that's hard to source, I'm going to add a much higher margin to the price, but I have to have a solid price. If I can't get a solid price, I have an infinitely valuable problem, right? In which case you need to either figure out how not to sell that, how to sell a reasonable substitution, how to do better with it, because if you can't get a solid price on it, it doesn't exist, and this is the wrong time to be selling vaporware. So figuring out pricing. So figure out the cost, figure out the amount of margin that you need to apply to it based on the risk. What's the chance the thing will fail, that you'll have delivery issues, that you'll have training issues. If you're dealing with people that, you know, somebody's grandmother could die and all of a sudden you've lost them off a show, how are you going to replace them? Okay, you're going to incur costs. I hired a local person, there are no local people left. Now I got to fly somebody in from another town. Okay, that's extra cost. I can't pass it on to the client. It has to already be built into my margins, which is why I use the term replacement cost all the time. So I don't need just what does this cost, I need to know what the replacement cost is. If I book this unique one-of-a-kind LED wall and there is not another one available, my replacement cost is infinite, which means my failure rate is 100% if I lose that product, right? So pricing, cost, then risk, which leads to the question about how do you change the pricing you've been giving your clients for years? And I probably answer this every single week. Well, first of all, let's admit the problem. The problem is we've been showing our clients the math for years. We've trained them that our prices matter to them rather than what we are doing for them. So we have to untrain them. So the first thing we have to do is stop showing customers math. Show them what it is you're going to do. Represent the ask in delivery terms. All right, so you've asked for this, you wanted 18 of these and 20 of these and blah, 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 blah. And here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to give you a image this size for an audience this big who's going to be able to see and hear, and you're going to be able to record, and you're going to be able to stream. So you undo the ask and talk about the what. So instead of the how, you're selling the what. Here's what that costs. Okay. Well, how much are you charging me for a speaker? I'm not charging you for a speaker anymore. I'm now charging you for what the speaker does. Now, we can put the budget together and you can deconstruct it if that makes you feel better. But the fact is, if you ask for 18 speakers, I might have to send 24 because that's the right way to do it. And you start reframing what you're doing for them so that you get them to quit thinking about the pricing. Now, it's not just our customers that we have to undo this thing, it's also our salespeople. I had a conversation yesterday with a sales manager. They have the capability of doing a very nice curved LED screen, which is taking a product, putting in an optional product. So wherever the curve is, they have a curvy version of that same LED that they can apply. I won't pretend to understand all the model numbers and everything. And what they wanted to be able to do was quote the flat part of the LED screen plus the curvy part of the LED screen plus the flat part, and give the client a price. And the owner and I are both leaning forward and going, no, the client asked for a curved LED screen. That's a huge ask. Okay. The value of the LED screen, a curved LED screen, is greater than the sum of the parts it takes to do it. They're also paying for the fact that you can do it, okay, and that you have the unique pieces to do that. That costs more. So quit thinking like a rental transaction and think about the problem that you're trying to solve and your unique ability to do that and capture that value. So it's a whole new world out there. I don't care if you're in production rental. If you can do something unique, it has unique value. It's greater than the sum of the parts. If you're responsible for the outcome of the product, okay, that has more value than if you're simply delivering a product that somebody else is going to use. If you're in the rental business, you're delivering a piece of product that works. If you're in show business, you're delivering the experience of seeing the working curved screen. Worth a lot more money. So quit showing customers your math. Okay? Show them what they can control. They can control how long the job is, but that may not affect the rental rate. They can control how big of a surface they're willing to pay for, but that may not affect the rental rate. You see where I'm going? So what can the customer control? They can control schedules. They can't control how long it takes to do something though. So move on for that. Next question here. Again, any topic you guys want to put in, feel free to do that. And let me get my mouse working here. Bear with me. All right. Next question. All right, I'm going to continue a little bit on the pricing change thing. I'm getting customers to accept pricing change because I left out a very important piece to all of this. I just realized in that when you are selling a pricing change, you know, increase in labor rates. Oh my God, logistics. You know, that truck that cost you, you know, $4 a mile before is now costing you $8 a mile. How do you tell your customer that trucking just went from $6,000 to $12,000? Well, the first sale is always to yourself. So if you do not understand the change in pricing and why it's important and why it's still valuable, then you're never going to convince your client of it. And the fact is, a specific item changing in price doesn't have to be the hill that you die on when you're quoting a job. Again, unpacking the job, unbundling the job from those things. Why is, if trucking is going to be a problem for the client to understand, then trucking is simply a cost that you have to add margin to in the entire blended job. So when the client says, well, you guys aren't local and you've got trucking in here, and I say, the trucking is figured into my costs. I can do the job for this. Well, how can you do it for that? That's the same as the local company. I know, right? So you get the company that you want at a price that you would have had to hire somebody you don't know who just happens to be local. I'm not going to let what it costs me affect what I do for you. So knowing what something costs means that you can add margin to the blended job. And while you may on a line item basis be taking a hit on trucking, you may be making a lot higher margin on some other services like that curved LED wall. So sell it to yourself first that you are worth it and that what you're doing is valuable and that a single line item is not a reflection of who you are. And if you can't talk your way out of a single line item objection from a customer, then you have absolutely no business being in sales. All right. How do I get my salespeople to do more than take orders? I guess beatings are not appropriate anymore. We need these people. All right. First thing we have to accept is that some of the most productive people in our industry in sales are great order takers. And asking somebody who is a great order taker to do something else is not going to work. If they're not good at outside sales, if they're not good at picking up the phone and calling clients to find out about their job for next year, blah, blah, blah. If they're not good at that, but they're really good at responding to a request and filling out the order, just change their role. Let them do what they're really good at and hire people or backfill the services that you need to get the thing that you want. I have tried for 25, 30 years to get salespeople to be different than what they are, and it doesn't work. Figure out what they're good at, design that job around them, and quit trying to write a job description that you have the wrong person already in the seat. Create a job that that person can succeed at with their talents, and help them do that. So get people in the right roles. Start to separate customer acquisition from project sales or fulfillment. You guys all know my selling grid here. The top left-hand corner is project-based. This is the transactional, and this is the client-based business, and this is the enterprise industry. If you are a project sales organization, which many of you are, you sell a project, one project at a time, often through an RFP process. If your salespeople, if their job is to call the client from last year's association to get the RFP for this year's event, okay, that's just chasing an RFP, right? And if they're horrible at doing that, get somebody else to do it. How hard is this, right? Why lose somebody who's good at taking care of the client, delivering the budget, managing all that, and doing all of those things, when this is an admin function where you can get a person with a lovely voice to call up and say, hey, I know you work with Tom, but we're just confirming the dates for the job because we want to start penciling in some names for you. Can you tell me a little bit about it? And when you're ready to talk about the job, call me and I will schedule the meeting for Tom and his team to start talking about your project. Just throw some customer service in front of that customer and you will get what you want as the leader. So separate customer acquisition from project sales. Those touches that we need to have for our customers. Hello, marketing. We can do a lot of that with marketing. You can market, you can send people, hey, you can put them on mailing lists that say, talk about next year's, here's a reason to talk about next year's project. Why don't you schedule a call and let's look at the new technologies that are available for you. There's all sorts of things you can do there. We can also use business development roles to do this. So you'll need a combination of marketing, business development, account management, and transaction management, customer service, to make all of this work. Asking one person to do all of that in their role is a non-starter. And that's what very often we do. We want to hire an outside salesperson who's going to go out and get their own jobs, service those jobs, maintain that account while they're getting other jobs. And it doesn't happen, right? Because it doesn't work. Because as soon as they're handling the job that they just found, they're no longer going out and looking for another job until that job is in the can. And now they're starting from zero again and finding a job that's in 6 or 12 months. We need to be acquiring business full time, which means you probably need some dedicated resources for acquiring business. And oh yes, and before I get hate mail from account executives, business development should be calling on your clients, especially if you aren't. Doesn't mean that you're not the relationship person. It just means it is in the best interest of your company that business development, which is a function of marketing, is making sure that your customers are getting touches, getting attention, okay, that you don't have time to give because you're taking care of the customers that are in front of you right now with ongoing projects. It's teamwork, folks, okay? Build the right team and you'll get this all taken care of. Another question. How can we possibly have a salesperson for every scenario? I can't afford this or have all this. I didn't say have a salesperson for every scenario. I say you have the skill sets and understand what the skill sets are. So if you're an ideal, trust me, I have small clients. Not everybody's a mega corporation here. If I have an account manager and they're really good at dealing with those top left-hand projects, okay, but they get bogged down doing customer service rep stuff, writing rental orders down here, okay, I'm not saying hire another service person. I'm saying for the 25% of the time it takes to write those orders, have somebody else do it. If you're the owner, do it yourself, okay? These are all profit. That's a great use of your time. You'll make more money at it than this person will, and they're not being taken away from dealing with their project sales. So I don't need a ton of more people. I just need to understand what the different roles are. And if this is all I have, and I can't afford to have biz dev going out and finding new clients, then I don't have to hire biz dev. I need to invest in marketing, because marketing will work 24/7 at a much lower cost than business development. And marketing leads will go straight to your account manager who's processing them, because they're not writing rental orders because you took care of that, right? So follow an order through the system, look at the different types of orders and how many people need to touch it and what it takes to do it. If your account manager can't write a proposal because they need the project manager to look at it and write the equipment list, okay, you've got a process constraint if that project manager is also out working on jobs. So this is why we want to map our process to see where our constraints are. The other thing, I'll make one more point here. If you have too many fronts, if you're fighting too many battles, you're trying to serve too many customers. If I ask you who your target customer is, and you say, hey, it's this corporate, this independent producer who goes out and wins jobs and gives us an RFP because she's got her own TD. We love those jobs. And we also have a corporate client over here that we deal with, but they're really high maintenance because they do stuff every week and they never know what they want. And then we have all these B2B clients down here. Okay. You're fighting too many wars. You're fighting too many fronts. You don't have a focused business model. You're taking whatever you can and you're treating it all with this equal amount of importance. You need to understand what business that you're in. And the first step that I go through with my clients is assess what their strategy should be. And a lot of it is taking a look at what it has been. And what it has been very often is they're all over the map. They're treating all of this with the same amount of importance, when in fact, what they need to do is they need to focus on a primary business, whatever it might be, and create the avenue for some fill-in work, and a process for doing fill-in work that won't compromise their work they're doing for their ideal customer or their core customer. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you coming up with the topics and the questions. So continuing on the sales route, let's talk about forecasting. Ugh. Now, is there anybody on this call who's busy, whose company is busy right now, who didn't know that they were going to be busy in October? I don't know how you didn't know you were going to be busy in October. I knew you were going to be busy in October last May, right? So we all should have expected to be busy. Now, did we believe ourselves when we said all the signs say that we're going to be busy? That's a different problem. So part of forecasting is understanding what it is that you can believe. What are the indicators, the leading indicators that tell you what's going to happen, and learning how to trust those instincts. So forecasting, the biggest complaint I'm hearing right now is that all of our jobs are last minute and the client is changing everything all the time. Well, which is it? Okay, is it last minute, or have you been talking to the client for 3 months and they're still sorting out what it is that you're going to do for them? So part of trusting the pipeline is that if client A calls you and says, we're going to have an event in October, and they call you in June, okay? But it takes all this time to figure out exactly what it is the final job is going to look like. What happened here? Okay, what happened there? For many of you, and very often when people tell me, we don't know what jobs we're going to do because the client hasn't signed off on the final version of it, we're doing billable work this entire time. They just weren't billing for it. They were waiting for the final job so that they could put it onto the job and bill it all at once. Okay, so if you want to have a better understanding of forecast, reassess the kind of work that you're actually doing and what you can charge for it, when you can charge for it. Because this planning and production process that we have, particularly in hybrid events and streaming events, has value that we can be charging for. Now, if you're charging, a little bit here, some more here, and then you've got ka-ching, the event, okay, all of a sudden your forecast looks very clear because you know you're going to do something here because you're doing some billing. And once we start introducing this incremental billing and looking at the life cycle of a project, we're seeing calendars fill up because we're starting to recognize what the activity means. So this activity is telling us we're going to be busy in October. The number of inquiries are telling us something. Well, they haven't asked us for a price. Yes, but right now an inquiry is huge. Remember, because we have a supply chain problem. They're asking who can do the job so they can figure out whether they can do the job. Can I even find a supplier to do this for me? So those inquiries start to add. So when we're looking at your funnel, okay, we're looking at all the different elements, okay? The number of inquiries, the number of demos, prelim budgets, all of those things are leading indicators to how busy you're going to be for a given time period, which leads us to what's 2022 going to do? I don't know. What kind of inquiries are you having for 2022? Are you doing demos for products and services for jobs that will be in 2022? And here's the other thing. If the job is virtual, the dates are too. The dates can move. They're not tied into a venue. They can add a venue later if that's what they want to do, right? So we just have to learn how to write a forecast differently. So it's not that the jobs are all last minute. Okay, it's just that the final version of what you're going to do is decided later on in the process than it has been before. Look at the activity, and again, this is why we keep overhead low. For instance, I've got a client next year. They've got a great January lined up. March through June is just bonkers through the roof, and they have nothing going on right now in February. And they're not getting the inquiries, and they're not talking to anybody about February. February just seems to be a doldrum with no explanation because everything else in their calendar is jam-packed. Now, they can do one of two things. They can say, we're not going to have a forecast. We're going to put our forecast at February for 0 because we don't have anything. Or they can predictably saying it's going to fill in later, and they can put a number to it. If your overhead is low, this becomes much easier to say, does it matter? Because the fact is, with a low overhead, if your overhead team is at the right number and your overhead is primarily focused on acquiring and planning business, you can be acquiring more business during February. You can be planning future jobs during February. You're going to be busy as heck during February. You just may not have any revenue. In which case, you can comfortably go to your thing and put 0 and go, wow, we're going to lose money. But here's the difference. The money that you're going to lose in a 0 revenue month now is 1/2 to 1/3 what you would have lost 2 years ago. And that's the beauty of having lower overhead. The fluctuations in business hurt you less, okay? Now, the trickle down goes into your supply chain. Your supply chain is not going to be busy during February because you're not busy. But guess what? Your supply chain serves everybody else that's on this call today. And guess what? They happen to be busy for whatever reason, for whatever luck of the draw they have, the supply chain will survive. The fact is, most of the indicators I'm seeing is that there's a lot of activity going on for next year. It is, are you ready for this? Business as usual. Yeah. We're back to normal. It's just that this is the new normal. So we're post-pandemic. Okay. We've had some changes in the supply chain. We have some changes in customer buying styles and approaches. We have changes in the products and services that you're asking. Your costs are different. Your margins are different, which means your prices are different. But if you're doing all of these things, if you're taking all of these things into account, okay, here's what I was going to talk about this next month, but I'll just give you a premier example. Going through a financial review with a client this week who in 2019, with probably 60 employees, may have put $200,000, $300,000 to the bottom line at the end of the year on $10 or $12 million worth of business. Not a healthy return. This same company with 20 employees, literally 50% of the same business, and they're going to put close to $900,000 to the bottom line this year. They cut their overhead into less than half. Okay. They're doing half the business. They're doing it at higher margins. Okay. And look at that. So who wouldn't want to go from 60 to 20, cut your business in half and make more money? I mean, but this is the opportunity that we have. And it doesn't matter what your business model is. In our industry, we had a long downtime and we got a lot of ground to make up, you know, if you want to look at things that way. But the fact is, we have a much more scalable, profitable business model we can use. You can, if you're an equipment-based company, you can buy less equipment. If you're a services-based company, you can employ fewer people full-time and have fewer full-time overhead obligations. I mean, the opportunity is just fantastic right now. If you're selling services that save time, okay, the value of the time you're saving is much higher. I know some of you, I see the names on here, some of you are in the software development business. If your software is saving people time, that is the value. It's not what your product does, it's the time savings that they're going to get out of it. That's what you're selling. You're not selling the features, you're selling the benefits of this. So look at the benefits that we're dealing with right now. And I think you'll find we're in a much, much healthier position than we've been in before. All right, more questions. I'm getting a little thin here on my pre-planned topics. Throw something out at me. While I'm waiting for you, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to go to InfoComm next week. If you read the newsletter, if any of you happen to be planning on coming to InfoComm, even for a day, I just love to bump into you. Shoot me an email. Let's pick a time. We'll meet up. Nice to have some human-to-human contact, swap a few stories, and talk to some real people for a change instead of just through a Zoom window. So I'm looking forward to that part of it. I'll be there Tuesday through Friday, and I have surprisingly quite a bit of time available on my calendar, though Wednesday has gotten pretty busy. So I'm excited about that. So come on out to Orlando. It's not too late to make some plans for all of that. All right. Hey, Scott from Grand Rapids, thanks for being here. Rob, lovely to see you. Any more topics, any more questions? I'm happy to wrap up early today because I know you guys got stuff to get back to do. Okay. One more, okay. Equipment. All right. Well, I've been talking a lot about people. We've got to talk about equipment. Question is, you know, when can I buy gear again? I don't know. When can you? If I'm going to evaluate, if my clients are saying, Tom, I think we need a bunch of gear, I'm going to say, well, unpack that for me. Tell me a little bit more about that. What's telling you need more gear? Well, we're having trouble finding things, or we're having to sub-rent a lot of things. Well, guess what? Sub-rental's not bad. Sub-rental is the key to scalability. Pre-pandemic, one of the first things I looked at in an organization was how much outside labor they used and how much their sub-rentals were. And if the numbers were below my metrics, it told me that I had a company who was not built for scalability. They were built to do everything in-house, and which told me what their margins were going to be, which told me what their profit was going to be, and it also told me where I was going to find process constraints and difficulties in their organization. So if you don't need to buy gear, but all you have to do is source gear, you are now in the procurement business. So before you tell me you have to have gear, let's see if we can't up your procurement game. And let me give you an example. The client in particular I'm thinking of called me, say, hey, we need another sound system. You know, we're doing some of these bigger gigs, and our sound is not quite enough for an arena. And if we put it all in there, I can't do any other jobs. I need another sound system. I said, really? Tell me all the places that you've been sourcing an arena sound system from and how many times you've done it. So we counted the 4 times in the past year that they've done arena sound. The one time they'd sub-rented it, they said, okay, I'm sorry, sound people, sound is a commodity, particularly racks and stacks. Okay. You have not done a good job of procuring and finding out all the suppliers that can help you for that. And if you have a busy month, which was the impetus for the phone call, you know, they've got a job, they got 3 shows in May of next year that need arena sound for different clients. Lucky them. Gosh, we need to buy a sound system. No, you don't. You need to call the guys that you've been getting sound from, or you should be getting sound from. And instead of buying 1 gig, you're buying a month. You're looking at getting tour rates instead of one-off rates. You just need to do a better job of buying. And if you don't own the sound system, somebody else is taking care of all the maintenance and everything else that goes with it. So, well, sorry about that. My video decided to take a dump. So with that, I will just go ahead and kind of wrap this sucker up because I'm not going to fix this off my own. I don't have an AV crew here with me. So I want to, again, thank you all for coming to this. Thank you for giving me a chance to share some of this stuff. Do send me any questions that you may have offline. If you're ready to talk about how I can work with you in your business to move you along faster, don't hesitate to reach out. But if you just want to talk, you know, I'm pretty easy to get hold of. Feel free to reach out and do that anytime that you want. So thanks again. I hope you guys have a very profitable month and you have a great holiday season coming up. But I will talk to you again next month, and we'll talk a little bit of strategy to make sure that we're getting on the right foot for 2022. So thank you, everyone. Be well. Cheers. We'll talk to you soon.